Steel Ball Run? Yeah, perhaps overrated. Stone Ocean? Probably underrated. Subscribing to the New World Review in order to receive regular JoJo content uploaded straight into your YouTube feed? I would say perfectly rated. Hello and welcome to the New World Review, your source for everything anime and manga, and it's JoJo this time around, as it often is at this time of week. And today we will be diving into the topic of Steel Ball Run, a near universally praised segment of this epic tale. And I say near universally praised because Steel Ball Run certainly has no shortage of critics, but whenever I encounter a piece of media with this kind of disparity, I do feel the ever annoying need to ask myself, well, could it be overrated? And to begin any discussion along these lines though, it is always important to unpack that annoying word for a bit. You know, overrated and underrated are quite possibly two of the top 10 most common words that I see in any anime or manga fandom on the internet. They can both be applied to anything and everything, whether that be, say, the power of a particular character or an arc in the story, or even an entire series as a whole, as we will be examining here with Steel Ball Run. And my personal belief on the matter is that it is nearly impossible for any series to meet that delicate balance of not being overhyped or undersold. And so to illustrate, let's take an example of what I would believe to be a solidly good series, being My Hero Academia. It is good. It is a competent piece of shonen storytelling that is largely enjoyable with charming characters. And that has led to great experiences with the series and a massive fan base developing, who may tell many non-My Hero Academia fans that this series is amazing. And so when a person like that hears such a statement and decides to check it out, despite all of its merits, My Hero Academia might not live up to that brand of amazing, thus making it overrated. But at the same time, this commences a deadly spiral of online discourse because that person who did not get the experience they were promised is now probably telling others that this series is horrible and overrated, which rather twistedly kind of leads to My Hero Academia being underrated by that particular person. So two very stark schools of thought emerge whereby the series is either horrifically overhyped or criminally underrated. It's very difficult to find that sweet balance. And Steel Ball Run may find itself in a similar position because when I posed this question to my community, a lot of answers I got were the peak of praise. There were a lot of people who labeled Steel Ball Run as Araki's magnum opus, which I actually think I might have done as well, in a video no less. But a surprising amount went even further and called it the best piece of literature in the history of human media. And wow, oh wow. That is an incredibly grand statement to make, and to anybody who hears that, having not read Steel Ball Run, they're almost certainly going to go into the series and come out of it with an impression of, yeah, that was a bit overrated. And just like with the My Hero Academia example, some of these people are also quite liable to snap to the other extreme and call it a pretty meh series because it did not meet the proposed standard of being the best story ever told. However, this is much less common in the JoJo fanbase, mind you, in regards to this particular part anyway, which I think does speak to the fantastic quality of Steel Ball Run. I mean, I've only been a part of this JoJo realm for a brief period of time comparatively, but even when I pose this question directly, I have a very difficult time finding a huge amount of criticism of Steel Ball Run that isn't as a direct result of heavily built up expectations. That isn't to say that there isn't any, and we will certainly get into it, but I feel like that really does speak volumes about the genuine quality of Part 7, because I would personally not say that it has any potential fatal flaws, whereas I think there is a solid argument to be made that every other JoJo part does. And maybe that's not such a great idea to get into here though, but speaking of other parts, there is another fun human phenomena that occurs with this whole overrated, underrated business, because what happens when we put Steel Ball Run on a golden pedestal is that it kind of depresses the impression of every other part in comparison. So let's take another, what I would say is a widely loved part, being Diamond Is Unbreakable. Now there is a lot more of a solid argument when we get to the top tier asking people about their particular favorite part, but if one was to say that, say, Steel Ball Run was the greatest thing in literally all of human history, then it would, you know, lessen that impression of Part 4, which may very well lead to Diamond Is Unbreakable being underrated, and then the Part 4 superfans could adopt a stance of Steel Ball Run definitely being overrated. It's a really tricky thing, and my belief is that once discussion expands beyond one individual, which I guess would be more of a monologue than a discussion, in any case, once it expands beyond the thoughts of a single person, there is no such thing as a series or a character or anything that is not either overrated or underrated. It will always fall into one of those categories, often both actually, because once something is overrated, then it generates haters, leading to it being underrated, which generates lovers, and so on and so forth. So is Steel Ball Run technically overrated? Almost certainly. It is probably also underrated on the odd occasion, occasion as well. But to even achieve that first step, a series does need some substance to it at the very least, something that readers can latch onto and claim as fantastic. And in the case of Part 7, there are no shortage of often cited reasons for this being Araki's magnum opus, the first of which is the general claim that Steel Ball Run is quote-unquote peak Araki. You know, that this is the point in his career where the stars aligned and it resulted in Steel Ball Run. This was the time where Araki had solidified his art style, which over 3 decades had seen quite a rapid transformation and refinement, and by this point in JoJo, his experience as a visual artist was unparalleled, and that mastery is on full display in Part 7. In addition to that, Steel Ball Run is generally cited as the height of Araki's storytelling, which is another thing I'm almost certain that I said in my review of the series as well. But story in prior JoJo parts, specifically 3 to 6 I guess, was something of a technical necessity, a thing that existed in order to explore some fun stand battles, whereas the narrative of Part 7 very much stands out in comparison, because Araki has undeniably become a more effective storyteller with each part from Stardust Crusaders onwards. In each subsequent part, Araki learnt to integrate more of a solid narrative into his work, and it only makes sense that Part 7 would see something of an epitome of this, as well as arguably its successor JoJolion. And once again, along the same lines, with every subsequent part, Araki has become much more creative actually, which is a strange thing to ponder because you would think that by this stage, he would be burnt out of ideas, but that just isn't the case. And the most evident thing for this is stands. For any anime-only fans of JoJo watching this video, in terms of stands, I must say, you haven't seen anything yet. In my personal opinion, many of the most intriguing stands in the series come directly from Part 6 to 8, because Araki is really forced to delve into the more complex and blatantly bizarre ideas, because all of the basic stuff has already been done. And yes, I am hyping up your expectations here, which may lead to you being disappointed by these stands, but I really don't think so. In addition to this, Steel Ball Run features what are arguably 2 of the greatest protagonists that Araki has ever put to page, and most certainly the most memorable duo of the entire JoJo saga. They both have quite an impressive duality about them, because they tend to exist in a grey area of life. Like Johnny is outwardly a fairly reasonable person, but harbors a pretty terrifying darkness within him. And Gyro is more of an antagonistic element, but with a heart of gold, as well as teeth, lots of gold teeth. And of course, they balance each other out quite nicely. And to complement this, Steel Ball Run also features 2 of the most revered antagonists in the series, being Funny Valentine and Diego Brando. Valentine in particular has a huge following and seems to either charm or intrigue people at great length, whilst Diego, the alternate universe Dio, gets to take advantage of everything that character presented in the original universe, just with a much more subtle and identifiable take. I would say that he is more inviting at Dio, which at times generally makes you root for Diego, and that is a truly strange feeling. But I love it. And that actually brings up another huge element of Steel Ball Run, because it is not just Dio. This series is uniquely placed to take advantage of everything that parts 1 through 6 had built. There are references absolutely everywhere, and it can be incredibly fun to experience or identify those alternate incarnations of figures that we know and love or even know and hate. So to recognize certain names and go, well, hi, you're probably this incarnation of this guy, or the ancestor of this universe is this guy, and so on and so forth. So in a way, Steel Ball Run has a lot less pressure to act as its own standalone story, which is another one of those strange things to think about, because I feel like the general consensus would be that this would probably make the best standalone feature of any part of JoJo. But I don't know, at the same time, it's pretty intrinsically linked to JoJo, and in many ways both this and Part 8 present themselves as a greatest hits of the JoJo realm. And personally, I do agree with all of the above. I would also add the decision to have the part take place entirely within the setting of a cross-country race was a stroke of brilliance, because it very effectively added a layer of urgency in the background. And I would also personally posit that pretty much every side character was a compelling existence. Figures like Lucy, Mountain Tim, Hot Pants, Pocoloko Ringo, Wakapipo, Sandman, Scarlet, and so many more are all paramount figures that come to my mind whenever I think about Steel Ball Run. The cast is on an entirely different level to the characters of any previous parts, many of whom would just have, their own little arc and then promptly be discarded. But that is just my experience. I'm sure there are many out there who would argue strongly for side characters of various other parts because they just hit them that much more potently, and I think Golden Wind would be a good candidate for that. But is Steel Ball Run all it's cracked up to be? And look, I'm not trying to claim that my community post with close to 300 responses is anything empirical or even statistically relevant, it's not. But of the very few people who agreed with the sentiment that Part 7 was overrated, it was always for one of 2 reasons. Firstly, they would say yes, but so is all of JoJo. And I'm sure that some of these people were not even fans of the series, and some who do enjoy JoJo but have more lackluster opinion of the body of work as a whole. Neither of which actually contribute anything towards this particular discussion about Steel Ball Run, because it's more a comment on the series as a whole. But the second and more substantive reasoning was that Steel Ball Run is overrated because the beginning or first third of it is quote unquote slow. And look, there's something that, yes, I can agree with. I mean, I think Steel Ball Run has a fantastic opening handful of chapters, but after that, things do take a bit to kick into gear, whereas most other parts have left the opposite impression on me. They start out balls to the wall and then they stagnate a bit through the middle before picking up rapidly at the end. So Steel Ball Run is a strange property where it goes through the stagnation phase very early on, whilst the middle and the conclusion are, in my opinion, nothing short of brilliant. But that is problematic because when someone has been told that something is the greatest story ever written, and they encounter, say, 30 chapters of slowish setup, that sort of thing can really play on them. And also, this is just my personal speculation, but I have a feeling that a lot of people who did not enjoy Steel Ball Run also might be reluctant to speak up about that experience. Primarily because whenever somebody does, their opinion seems to be immediately assaulted by another. And look, no, it's not a popular thing to criticize Steel Ball Run, and the culture around that is so obvious that it might just be easier to stay quiet. But one final reason I will give for Steel Ball Run potentially being overrated is that it is juxtaposed directly against Stone Ocean, which is like a hate sink for JoJo parts. It's a really good example of the opposite effect actually, a part that gets so much negativity that it is almost certainly underrated. But next to that, just about anything is going to look fantastic as a result, which generally seems to benefit not only Steel Ball Run, but also Golden Wind. But in the end, I think this is a strictly technical case of overhype. Steel Ball Run has problems when people make the grandest statement possible about it, but at the very least in my explorations, I have not encountered much to debunk it as a property. From 99% of accounts I've seen, it is a solid story and a phenomenal JoJo part, even from those who are underwhelmed by it, but that seems to be entirely as a result of the fans rather than Steel Ball Run itself. And if you do have some more substantive criticism of Part 7, then please do leave it in the comments below because I would love to hear more legitimate issues that people do take with it. And for anyone who does see a comment like this, please don't immediately shit all over it, because I do think that stuff like this is a very valuable discussion. But what do you guys think? Please do let me know down in the comments below, or even join my Discord server. And if you're keen for some more JoJo content, then please do go and check out some of my other videos, or even subscribe to the channel for regular JoJo wonder delivered straight into your YouTube feed. But for now, this has been the New World Review, and I'll see you next time.